Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite warlock, practicing necromancer. And this morning, I kind of want to further the Just Do You series. And I thought I'd come at you this time around by a philosophical perspective. When you look at modern psychology, a lot of times shrinks medical personnel such as counselors and those with any form of degree will tell you to look at yourself. They'll revert the questions back to you. For an example, what makes you angry? Why are you frustrated? Why do you think that is? These kind of questions, and it's like, why? If I knew that answer, why would I be coming to you? Okay, if I already had those answers, then I wouldn't need you. You see the point? Well, here it is. Robert Greene wrote a number of books over the last decade. 48 Laws of Power, 33 Strategies of Warfare, Mastery, Human Nature, and The Art of Seduction. All very, very good books. And the thing I liked about the 48 Laws of Power is it applies certain principles that allow you as the individual to gain perspective on your own life. When you're reading, say, for an example, The 50 Laws of Power, which was another one of his books, couldn't really delve into that one too much. It was more about a journey of 50 cents, and I'm not really a big fan of 50 cents. So it was more of the fact that it was more kind of just drug on, so to speak. And the thing about the 48 Laws of Power is it was direct. It brought in certain philosophers, certain events that took place throughout the world and throughout the time and space, so to speak. So when we look at this, these certain perspectives, such as never outdo the master, never outshine the master, never, for things like you know, action speaks louder than words, if you will. For an example, never argue, just take action. You know, silence is golden. These are all things that you can easily apply to your life that will benefit you in the long run. Take my job for an example. As a primary baker, I'm got the opener, the overseer of the mornings until upper management shows up, shift leader, if you will. And I was talking with a customer today, and we were actually discussing this very thing. We've watched so many people, so much of these young pups that just come into the scene, think they have the bull by the proverbial horns, only to find out that I'm done, I'm gone, I'm leaving. Okay, put my 2 weeks in, get terminated, whatever. Now, what's interesting is we had a individual. She's been there about good 4 or 5 months. Okay, finally put her 2 weeks in. She's been written up at least 2, 3 dozen times. Okay, for outbursts of anger, creating a hostile work environment, basically the big chip on her shoulders, if you will. Now, this in Satanism is called counterproductive pride. Okay, counterproductive pride. This is where your ego is writing checks that your body cannot afford to cash in on. Okay. Now, she thought that she was proverbial right. You know, she'll argue with you, cause all kinds of mischief and subdivisions, if you will, only to find out, oh, the person that she believed in went against company policy and was literally doing things that were considered to be illegal. Oh no, right? Well, this makes this individual guilty by association because she was trying to do the exact same thing, following in that model. Okay. In the first video, when I said that there's a lot of herd conformity that you don't want to do, I'm not joking. The reason I say just do you is because you're the only one that you can count on. You're the only one that can control your own actions. You're the only one that can control your own thoughts. You're the only one that can do the research and put the time in. Okay. For an example, 5 months, 5, 6 months, I was promised shift lead numbers. I was promised that position. Okay. By general managers, by district managers. Okay. None of them did it. Not one. But I kept putting in that time. I kept putting in that work, and you know what happened? That district manager, that regional manager, out the door. All those managers just got up and left because my faith is not just in myself, but it's also in those that I work with. Okay, the spirits that I work with, the ancestors that I work with, my faith is in them. My teachers, my guides, the muses, if you will. These spirits I have faith in because they've always led me down a road of fruitfulness. Now, here it is. If we follow the same 48 laws of power, when you approach a job or you approach your magical services, let's say, for example, you go into your ritual room, have you ever thought, why should I go buy a book? Instead, why don't you think about what is it I can do for the spirit? How do I present myself in the temple? Not just in the temple, but as a spiritualist. How do I represent the spirits in the world? How do I get people to pay attention to what I'm doing? Okay. You want to look inwards, find out why you want to do this stuff. What is it about spiritualism? What is it about contacting spirits? Conjuration, spiritual conjuration. If we're talking necromancy, we're talking remote viewing practices, remote viewing. We're talking conjuration and reanimation if we're talking necromantic practices. So when we're working with the spirits, the first thing you want to do is follow the proper protocols. Okay. This is the difference between those who are just there for show and tell and those that are actually trying to become enlightened, to become educated, those who are trying to elevate themselves above the dross. Okay. So when you're thinking about this, who is the master? Obviously, you're the master of your own domain. Yes. That's the first and most logical go to symbol that you can think of. But when you're working with a spirit, let's say, for an example, you're working with Beelzebub, Lord of Flies. You become the apprentice. History has shown that there is only two: the master and the apprentice. I've always told my coworkers and those that I'm training and working with, those that I'm teaching, the same thing with my magical apprentices. A good leader is one that leads by example. Okay? I will not have you do anything that I myself am not willing to do. Okay? So if I'm not willing to go do the dishes or clean the restrooms or say for an example, take out the trash, I'm not going to have you do it either. Okay? But sometimes being a good leader isn't just about leading by example, it's also being a follower. And a lot of people don't take the time to think about that aspect. What does it mean to be a follower? What does it mean to be a servant? What does it mean to be both a teacher and an apprentice? When we think about this, one of the greatest perspectives here is put forth both by Bruce Lee, the legendary martial artist, and that of a Shaolin master by the name of Shi Hen Yi. And I hope I pronounced his name right. Shihengyi is how you spell his name. He is a Shaolin master out of Europe. This man literally has taken clearly a lot of time through meditation, self reflection, to get to understand the mind, the different behaviors of humanity, how to perceive the world. For an example, if a cup is half full, how do you add to that cup? How do you add to that cup? One of the best ways to do that is just to dump out that cup, right? What's in that cup? So if it's a quarter to a half full, just dump it out. Only then can you truly begin to learn. It would be like learning, let's say, for an example, let's go with Mudokwan, which is a Korean version of Taekwondo, known as aerial combat. If you've been trained in that particular martial art, and then you get into, say, for an example, let's go for Kempo, okay, a Japanese style. Kempo is perhaps one of the greatest adaptations of martial arts because you're constantly learning new ways, you're incorporating new ways into your philosophy. But to do that, you have to be open minded. You have to sit there and go, okay, my way is not the only way that's out there that allows me to learn, teaches me how to grow and to adapt. Going from this construct, going by this construct alone, let's get into the magical and supernatural aspects of sorcery. When you've been trained in a particular subdivision, let's say, for an example, you come from an atheistic background, like, say, atheistic Satanism, it's going to take a lot to get you to think, okay, the Satanic Bible by LaVey clearly shows that I would be a servant to Lord Satan. Okay. The book of Satan puts forth an actual construct. The book of Lucifer puts forth the philosophy. The book of Belial puts forth the actual tools and the rituals that you can do, along with the invocation. And then you have the book of Leviathan that brings forth the Enochian keys, both from John Dee and Edward Kelly. Okay. Now, I find it interesting that, according to the book of Satan, it was Satan that has been the best friend the church has ever had. This is from the number 9 of the 9 satanic statements. Okay. Satan represents a lot of things. Okay. Abstinence, fulfilling your appetites. To say, for an example, a creed that you're putting forth, who he is and what he's about. To the book of Lucifer, which describes, different aspects of satanic thought. Basically meaning God's dead, Satan rules. Okay? Then you have the book of Belial that tells you how to go into ritual, what type of ritual can be done from lust, compassion, and destructive means. Now, what's interesting is I'm going to pull up a couple of things here, and I'm from the Satanic Bible, and I want to show you what I mean. Peter H. Gilmore, who's the current head of the Church of Satan, says, when we say hail Satan, we mean hail ourselves, right? Hail ourselves. Okay, so if there is no God, there is no Satan. Why are you invoking them then? I mean, if you're going by Anton LaVey's Bible, then why would you say, I invoke the king of this world, ruler of the underworld? Call on all these different aspects of the devil. Such as Azazel, Beelzebul, Mormo, Mephistopheles, so forth and so forth, depending on which system of magical devices you get into. Place your power upon me, for we are one and the same, true worshippers of the highest infallible king of hell. That portion there is actually the last sentence in the Enochian keys. The Enochian keys. But if you read the invocation to Satan, I find that very interesting and peculiar. You're going to deny the very demons that you're calling on as an atheist, and then sit there and ask them to bestow stuff on you? Is that not called hypocrisy, duality? You know what I'm saying? Okay. So if we go by this, let's expand this. Okay. Through the Church of Satan, you now have the 11 doctrines of the earth, the 11 satanic rules of the earth, the 21 satanic points. You have the 9 satanic sins. Okay. You have the 9 satanic statements. And yet you don't apply them to your life. How do you expect to enrich your life if you don't apply the creed and the rules of that foundation, of that very practice, to your life? Okay. Let's go into Luciferianism. Michael W. Ford. The first 6 to 7 creeds in the adversarial Bible, specifically that of the adversarial doctrines, is about Lucifer. Now, Lucifer is a Hebraic system of tetragrammation. Okay. Now, what's interesting here is it says what he represents, but then you bring in a Mesopotamian Lilith by the name of Lilith, who ironically was Adam's first wife. Hmm. The first feminist, if you will. Okay. Did you ever stop to realize what these creeds mean? Did you actually read them and fully understand them? Okay. Much like the atheistic version, this is a system built off Zoroastrianism, Mesopotamian, Babylonian, Sumerian deities, not just the Roman and Greek perspectives of Lucifer. You're dealing with Orion, which is Zoroastrian in nature, the dark god, who is opposed to that of Ahura Mazda, the mad god, who is basically just another variation of Jehovah and Satan. Okay. So, knowing this, you can branch out into other systems. Let's go with Slavic. You have Belobog and Chernobog, god of light, Belobog, and Chernobog, the dark god. You go into ancient Greek and you have Phosphoros and Hespios, the day star and the dark star. Okay. Interesting how all these systems have the same opposing forces, much like night and day, men and women, day versus night, the balance factor, the Ouroboros, the peace symbol. So, how do we gain knowledge? Bruce Lee said to fill the cup, empty the mind. So these two individuals have both said, empty the mind, empty the glass. Only then can you begin to learn. Sun Tzu said, know thyself to know thy enemy. Know thy enemy to know thyself. Basically meaning, what are you truly capable of? What are you truly seeking? What do you hope to gain from your very practice, from your life? Meditation is perhaps one of the most intricate part of magical practice. Having things like a good woman in your life is a distraction from your evolution. Now, I'm not condemning women. I'm not telling you not to have a good woman in your life. I actually had one in my life, but she wasn't perfect. She was perfect to me, but you know, it was one of those things where she's her need for my attention was more than I could give because of the fact that she wanted to lounge around all day when she wasn't at work. She wanted to do all this other stuff. I was stuck with the animals, our son, and I had no time to do magical practice. If I did, it was very little. And it conflicted with her religion. Not just her religion, but her family as well. Because her family didn't like me. And they caused a lot of trouble, a lot of problems that I had to deal with because she didn't want to. Okay? So distractions are perhaps one of the greatest things that will prevent you from growing. But if you look at it as a test, a trial, okay? Look at it as as a chance to grow. If they use, let's say, for an example, friends against you, okay? Let's say, for an example, you have a lot of friends, okay? You start dating this person. The family hates you. But it turns out only one member of the family hates you. And you find that later on down the road. But at the time, you got all this stuff coming at you. Medical, government. You're like, say, let's go with one of the biggest things that people fear today, and especially as a parent, is having your kids take away. Okay, that's perhaps one of the biggest things that a lot of people fear. So you wouldn't want CPS to get involved. You would not want them involved because they're a pain in the ass to get rid of, right? Well, let's put it to you this way. How do you get them out of your life? How do you force them out of your life? A lot of people would just say, okay, I'll just bow down to their whims and do what they say. But this is normally what they expect you to do. But what if instead you took a look at what was coming at you? They are more like the JCI, the Judo Christian institutions, who have legions of sentinels that they can send your way. And the government, well, they don't want to fucking deal with it. Why? Because it means they'd have to take responsibility. Okay? So, you look at the way that they speak, the way that they deal with things. Remember what I said about proper protocol. Okay? So, for you to learn, you'd have to take a look at all the facts, their promises. Make sure, okay, I'm going to get this in writing. Okay? I'm going to, meantime, do what they ask, so to speak. Show them you have nothing to hide. Be open. They like to play games, so knowing this, how do you defeat them? You look at what they're doing, what they're saying, how they're acting. We're closing the case. Really? Okay, I want that in writing. Oh, the case is still open. Why is it still open? Why is it still open? When did you initially get involved? Okay, let's see. Kid is born, mother's depressed, iron deficiency, chronic depression. Okay, you get that. Be a little worried if it was like one or two meetings. Okay, that's pretty good. Everything's cool. So why did everybody else get involved? Turns out somebody sits on boards. So now you bring in the government, you bring in the medical aspects, you bring in a lot of other areas, including counseling. And then you bring in the CPS themselves. So now you've got legal penal code violations, both civil and federal. You give them to numerous lawyers, and then you give them a rundown of what you have them on. Basically, it's called blackmail. That's the legal term for it. Another name for it is twisting their arm and forcing them to get the fuck out of your life. The law let you down. Legal system let you down because of the grudge of one person. Okay? One person caused all this mayhem, right? So you don't just have CPS coming at you. You don't just have a family of Christians coming at you. You don't have just, say for an example, pediatrics coming at you. And this is upper level managers on this aspect. Okay. Just to make that clear, because you'll have the head of the nursing department, you'll have the head of the facility, on that little panel. You're going to have the big shots with CPS coming in going, well, we got you on this, and this. Really? Where's your proof? Okay, right there, you're coming at me, you're going after my reputation, which is basically illegal and opens you up for a legal lawsuit for slandering and defamation of character. Okay, you're sitting there limiting my rights as a parent. That's basically number one, sexism. Number two, harassment, bullying, stalking, even. You're preventing me from making a living, basically, much like working for a corporation. So, what did we just learn here? Just with this little detailed description, this example. You learned how to use the United States Constitution to your advantage. Number two, you learned how to apply the legal system to benefit you. And number three, you learned to be observant. Wow. Three key things. Knowledge is power, and true power is undefiled wisdom. Anton Szandor LaVey. Pretty cool, huh? So, right there, you just emptied out, excuse me, you just emptied out your glass. You forgot what you thought you knew, and then you focused on what you do know. You see, it comes down to that thought perspective, that perception of thought. And right there is the same method of going into your temple, going in front of that altar to perform your rites and your rituals. I want you to take that example and think about getting rid of all the things that are distracting you from achieving victory. Do you need somebody in your life, or is that just a societal norm that says you need it? According to the Bible, man should not be alone. Henceforth, why God created a woman from his rib, nonetheless. Okay. Did anybody stop to wonder why you would create a woman three times? In fact, why would you create man three times? I mean, let's just look at this for just a moment. Genesis chapter 1, around verse 26 and 27, depending if what translation you have. God created man and woman. Chapter 2, 16, 17 area is the verse. He creates them again. Chapter 3, he puts Adam to sleep, removes a rib, and creates woman. Why create man and woman three times? Why create them three times? If you're so perfect, shouldn't you only have to do it once? Just saying. So here it is. When you actually break it down in Christian theology, the first was in the spirit, the second was in the flesh, and the third was going corporeal. So you went from an apparition to a physical manifestation to the flesh. This is stages being done, much like the creation of the world. According to the Bible, it took 7 days. 7 days. Well, technically 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. Now, I find that interesting because they say, well, he's God, he can do anything. Really? Again, if he's so perfect, why did it take him so long? Hmm. Does not matter what religion you're in. If we go by Hinduism, the Devi, similar to the jinn in Islamic traditions, they're both good and evil. Some create mayhem, death, even bringer of death. Others heal, teach, enlighten, but they're not good nor evil. They're spirits of education, and that's the way they see it. It comes down to you learning. It comes down to you taking what they have to offer and turning it into something fruitful. In modern day lingo, a man has to have employment. A man has to have a home, transportation, okay? Before you, in a job, okay? Home, job, transportation. Before you can have a woman, right? So here it is. What does a woman do? In the 50s, a woman's job was to stay at home. Hell, throughout history, mostly, a woman's job was to stay at home. But if you look at the job descriptions of the many hats that she wears, I want you to look at this. She is a multiplier. You give her a place to live, she will turn it into a home. You give her groceries, she will multiply it into a meal. You give her your seed, she will multiply you into a family. A woman is necessary for the fruitfulness of the human species, or any species for that matter. Just like being a servant. You look at any religion out there, monks are considered to be priests, a form of priesthood. Shamans were spiritual advisors. The Shem priests of ancient Egypt, first, second, and third dynasty, were considered to be the first level of priesthoods. They dealt with magical rituals to funerary rites, marriage rites, counseling and dealing with the people to religious worship. Hmm. Ironic that nowadays it's only Christianity that can do that. Huh. And you have to abide by their creeds, to be able to do anything, right? Huh. Ironic how that works. It's all one sided. Just like a relationship used to be equal. Now it's all about the woman and her rights. Men have no rights. So, how do you counterbalance this? What can we learn from this alone by just doing you? First of all, people spend too much time going to other people, going, "Hey, what do you think about this? Do you know anything about this? What can I do? Well, what can I do here? And it's like, huh. I don't know. Yeah, I think you should do this. No, I think you should do that. Well, guess what? Who gives a shit what other people think? It should be about what you think. Because let's face it, you're the only one that can decide for yourself. Hey, I'm going to apply for this job. Hmm. I'm going to work in a relationship of equality with my partner. I'm going to work hand in hand with these spirits because not because I have to, but because I want to. Okay. I want to learn from these spirits. I want to learn the ancient knowledge from all these spirits, as many spirits as I can while I'm alive. I want to sit there and go from all these texts, these ancient texts, like the Zohar, the Talmud, the Jewish Haggadah, you know, the Book of Tobit, even. Okay. I want to go through all of these texts, these ancient texts, and I want to learn about these entities, these spirits, and the political and governmental ruling bodies. Okay. When you go into a cemetery, there are different hierarchies with the ruling elders of that cemetery. You go into Wudan, you have, or even Santeria, Palo Mayombe, there's a ruling factor, a ruling body, a council, if you will. Even there's a ruling factor in a board of directors, if you will, within any governmental establishment of magical practice, not just supernatural or spiritual. For an example, before you even go into your temple to meditate, to call forth these spirits, wash your hands, wash out your mouth, put on your ritual robes, contemplate about why you're going in there. Focus your mind away from what's out there, that craziness, that chaos, because you're the only one who can do that. Enter your temple, your inner temple. Go in, sit down, meditate. Have a single candle lit for a little bit of illuminescence. Focus your mind and your thoughts upon that one candle flame. And as you do, think about your intention. Why are you there? What is your perspective from a third party viewing about what's going to happen there? What is it that you hope to achieve in that temple? What is it that you hope to do? Why are you in there? Light the rest of the candles that you have set up, that you pre-set up. Light the incense. Light the charcoal. Sit there in the center of that circle. The pentagram, if you will, or the inverted cross, whatever religious thing that you relate to. It could be a steve or a sigillium of a spirit in front of you. Meditate upon it. Get your mind, clear your mind of all distractions, all the white noise and all that chaos. Just leave it at the fucking door. And then when you're ready and you're calm, you're relaxed, your mind is focused upon the objective in front of you. Begin your mantra. Begin your whispers, your chanting. Begin your ritual. Invocations, evocations. Bringing forth the tools that are representation of that spirit. And as you do, ring that gong. If you have a singing bowl, utilize that. If you have a bell, ring it within a rhythm. If you have a drum, that beat, get you into that train of thought, that action that you're undergoing. Again, you want to cleanse that mouth with alcohol, water, or something that is considered to be a cleansing agent, and spit it into a designated bowl. Begin your rite. By that time, there is no distraction. There's just you and what you're doing, that intent. And you're doing it with conviction. It doesn't matter if you're doing a destructive spell, a hex, a curse. It doesn't matter if you're doing a lust ritual or a compassion ritual. It doesn't matter if it's monetary, even, such as a money spell. And a lot of people today are online talking about how they are doing this and that. But how many of them are actually sitting back and reflecting upon why they're doing it? What is it they hope to achieve? And by the time you're done that frenzy, you're done with and exhausted throughout that entire rite and ritual, that summoning, that petition, the whole reason why you went in there. Perhaps it's to ask for guidance, wisdom, knowledge, apotheosis. Perhaps it's to uncover gnosis, that which is unobserved, unseen, unknown. Will come to fruit, will bear fruit. Perhaps you've gone in asking for money. You've got that green candle. You've washed it down with olive oil or alcohol or something, and you've inscribed the amount that you want. You've got the name of the spirit that you're calling forth. You've got the candle going, and you're letting it burn down. When you feel that rite has ended, extinguish the candles, or you can just let them burn out. But make sure you're home the whole time. You don't want your place of residence to burn down. And if you are using sage, make sure you've got a good stick, because a lot of times that sage will burn out, but sometimes you'll burn the entire stick and you'll have your alarms going off. Trust me, that happened to me a couple of times. You get that one stick that just wants to be a pain in the neck and doesn't want to extinguish. But the point here is I want you to start thinking about why. The who, the what, the why. What is it about what you do and what you're about to do that brings you forth into that area of expertise? By doing you, not worrying about what other people are doing, you're going to gain greater knowledge. You're going to find that enlightenment. It's dedication and commitment, complete fealty through conviction of what you're doing. Every religion has zealots. I mean, think about the Necronomicon put forth by Simon. It speaks of a man washing up on an island. Thought he was the only one until a priesthood came up chanting an unknown name, an unknown language. Instead, he ran, and they supposedly chased after him. But when he realized nobody was following him, he went back, only to find the robes, no people. But what would have happened? What would have happened if, instead of fleeing this ritualistic site, like the witch's Sabbath, in a dense, unpopulated woods. Witches and warlocks frolicking around a bonfire. Instead of fearing it, why not embrace it? Why not think, what language are they speaking? I'd like to try to understand it. How about putting forth that thought of, why are they doing it that way? Why why do they have their creeds and their languages and their setups this way? But history has shown that people would rather live by fear and doubts than to actually fully embrace understanding and knowledge. And this is why the world is the way it is today. It is a design of fear, doubts. But if you think about it, without trials, how can you truly grow? How can you use this knowledge to benefit you? How can you just do you? Hmm. Meditate on that. All right. Have a good day.